Hello and welcome to part 14 of the Jeep tutorial series. This is David Ward. When last I left you, we had painted the textures on the seats and the gas can, and got in and added materials for the steering wheel and the gear shifts and everything. And then we got in and did the speedometer, and then I told you it would be the exact same technique for all the other gauges, so I went ahead and did that in the meantime, so I can show you each one of these gauges has the corresponding texture map for it. Now, one thing we need to do, if we were to go ahead and if I hit Alt-Control-0 with my view set to here, it's going to reset the camera to be right there. So, if I was to render right now, take a couple seconds here, we wouldn't be able to see the gauges, even though the glass, well, I guess we can. I was going to say, one thing that we need to do for that glass is to set it so it doesn't throw a shadow. So the way we do that is we just grab one of the dials that has the glass on it and select the glass material, scroll down here, all the way down to the bottom where it says shadow, and we're going to turn off, actually, let's see, I think if we turn off traceable, it won't throw a shadow at all. So, apparently that was not an issue, or maybe my lights aren't throwing shadows. Let's just look and see. Let's grab one of them. Yeah, see, if they were throwing shadows, then we wouldn't be able to see the actual gauges under the glass, because the glass would be throwing a shadow. So we have to tell the glass not to throw a shadow. So again, just set the turn off traceable for the actual glass material. So if we scroll down, you can see, there we go. So if we were to, well, I'd have to change each one of the lights to throw shadows, so you get the idea. So, okay, we got the gauges, and the only thing we have left for texturing is the headlights and then the turn signals. So that's going to be relatively easier. We won't need to actually make any texture maps for these. We'll just use straight materials. So I'm going to grab that first headlight. Let's center our scene up on it, hit the period on their numpad, tab into edit mode, and we already have the dome selected, so I'm going to go ahead and set that. Scroll up here, go to materials, scroll up here. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one here, and we're just going to select from our materials and say class. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and hide that, and another thing we need to do before we give this a reflective headlight type of thing is to divide this up, and we're actually going to have three different materials on here. We're going to have the glass dome, and then we're going to have a rubber, kind of a rubber container for it, and then the actual light bulb area itself will be more of a chrome type of thing. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and let's go ahead and add a seam right there. And even though we're not adding textures, seams are still useful for dividing the object into two different parts. So if I go to face select mode, since I've added that seam, and I select one of the faces out here and hit Control L, it's only going to select the seams. It looks like it's selecting everything, but it looks like we might have some vertices that are doubling up. Let me select one of these guys and bring it out. Huh, maybe not. Anyways, it looks like everything's selected, but it's only selecting what's on the other side of the same side of the seam that I selected. So if we add a new material here, and we'll just use the same dark grayish rubbery look that we used for the steering wheel and everything. So I'm just going to say, I don't know, what was that material? Let's go ahead and name that black rubber. Okay, and we'll just assign that to what's selected there. You can see it only applied it to what was selected. So now we have this remaining part here, so I'm going to go ahead and select all that, add a third material. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one this time. We're going to call this one, we'll just call it chrome. Okay, and now, rather than actually make actual reflections, which you could do by turning on mirror, And if we collapse all these guys, you can get an idea of what it would look like. Reflectivity, turn that all the way up. to be like chrome. I don't want to do that because that takes longer to render, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And I'm going to kind of do a sort of a cheat thing that I found a few years ago to make this look metallic without actually having to use reflections and things like that. And that's to set the diffuse color to a little bit more of a grayish tone, and then set my specular level kind of the opposite of what you would think. If it's something's metal, it's typically going to be really shiny, but I'm going to set the intensity way down, and then set the hardness way down too. Maybe set the intensity up a little. Yeah, set the intensity actually all the way up, and then maybe the hardness just a bit more. And we turn on our Suzanne monkey. You can kind of see it almost looks like a metallic sheen if you just play with the settings there. Kind of just a brushed nickel type of thing. You can go ahead and add some mirror if you like, but you don't need to add the 100%. So maybe about 0.2. Okay, yeah, we'll just go ahead and leave it like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and assign that to what's selected now, which will be the light area. There we go. So now if we tab out, you can see we have the clear dome. And actually, if we come over here in our display, let's see, where is that? Maybe it's here in our settings. Yeah, if you go to the little orange box here, the Object tab, come down here to Display and set Transparency. Well, it should be, well, I guess I have to be in solid mode for that to work. You can see that the glass part is transparent. You can kind of still see it a little bit, but for the most part it's transparent. If I grab that glass and make it a little less transparent, you can see it makes it a little darker over there. So that's how you can kind of see through things. And then if we were to come over here and look at the gauges, we'd have to turn on, actually, there we go, turn on transparency there too. You can see the glass kind of went transparent, but you can't see the textures because, well, because we're in solid view, not texture view. The transparency trick doesn't work in texture view. So anyways, unless you actually have a transparent texture like a PNG that has an alpha part on it. But in any case, so we got the headlights set up. I'm going to go ahead and just take a shortcut and just delete this other one and just duplicate the one we have set up already. Just drag that over there. Good to go. And I could do the same thing on the other guys, but I'll just do the same thing we did on the headlight the first time. We'll just add all the materials here individually. So let's add a slot. We'll say glass, and go ahead and assign it to what's selected, which is just the dome. We'll go ahead and hide the dome. And actually what I'm going to do is make another material for the turn signal. It'll be, instead of a clear glass, it's going to be like a yellowish glass, and then we'll do the same thing for the brake lights, except it'll be red, of course. So now, since we don't have a hole in the grill for this light, I'm not actually going to worry about the chrome part. So I'm just going to select everything else, add a new material, and we're going to grab that black rubber and assign that. So now if we tab out, the glass will be transparent, but let me go ahead and create a duplicate of that. And the way you do that is right here you see the number. It says 8. That means there's 8 different objects that glass material is currently applied to. And that's going to be the 5 gauges and the 6, 7 headlights, and then where it's at now, the turn signal. So that's 8 different items that it's selected. So if I hit the 8, it's going to duplicate it and put a .001 after. So now I can rename this to turn signal, and we're going to come down here and let's see, shading. There's a way, I guess we'll just do it here. Just set the transparent, or the default diffuse to that amberish turn signal color, and then we'll set the transparency down a little bit less. Actually, about like so. Well, it doesn't matter in this case because it's just going to be solid black behind there. So let's just make it 0.75, and then I think that'll be fine. Okay, so tab back out. Let's come over here, get rid of this one, and duplicate that over there, about like so. And then looks like we don't I didn't add any turn signals for the taillights, so they'll just be red. So we'll do the same thing we did on the turn signals. Just set this to have, we'll say, turn signal, and then I'll duplicate that the same way we did the other, and then add another slot, say black rubber. I'm going to select the inverse and assign that. There we go. Now we'll get that turn signal. Now you can see it's added to 3 items. Tab out of edit mode. Which is the front 2 turn signals, and this current one selected the rear tail light. So I'm going to hit that 3, and we're going to call this one brake light. There we go. Set that diffuse to the red color. So there we go. And we'll go ahead and get rid of the other one. Delete. Okay. Control 1 puts us in the rear view. It's just like the front view, except the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and select that brake light, Shift D, duplicate that over to the other side. There we go. Okay, so everything should be pretty well set. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And let's look through our camera's reset where I put it inside the cab to look at the dials. I'm going to go Control-Alt-0 again to bring the camera outside. Then we'll have to zoom it out some. There we go. Go ahead and save this. And if I hit render now, we should have everything all with materials and textures. So we'll let that render real quick. Well, the headlights look okay, but they're a little too transparent. I haven't actually applied the materials to the seats or the gas can. I just created it. So let's go ahead and create the materials for those. Grab the seats. New material, we'll say seats. Okay. Set the transparency or the specular down to 0.15, hardness to 30, just like we did on the exterior. And go to our texture settings, and we probably just load it in here. Is it still? No, we'll say new. Okay. These are the textures that have already been set up. Since we haven't set up the seats texture, still the texture's most likely still in our scene, unless you close Blender out and opened it back up and it got rid of everything that wasn't connected to anything. But we can set this seat textures, set that to image or movie. And like I was saying, it's still in the scene somewhere, so I can probably just find it somewhere in here. Is it going to be that one? Yeah. So it'll be our untitled.003. We'll just go ahead and name this seat texture. There we go. And go ahead and set that to be UV coordinates. Okay, so now we can kind of get an idea what else we need to do by going to Texture View in GLSL. So now that should show everything but the gas can. So we're almost there. We'll grab the gas can, go ahead and create a material for that. Gas can. And do the same thing, set the specular to 0.15, hardness to 30. And give it that texture, new texture, call this one gas can texture. And go ahead and set that to image or movie. And then it's probably still in the scene too, right there, or you can open it right there and find it in your folder. So that's good to go. Go ahead and set that to be UV coordinates. There we go. Everything's textured and mapped now. However, I'm going to go ahead and create a different glass for the headlights. I want to keep it the way it is for the gauges, which you can actually see here now that we're in GLSL view. You can actually see everything that's going on there. I'd like to fix that speedometer. It looks a little ugly, so let's select that. It's kind of skewing out for some reason. Select all this, scale it down some. Maybe the actual geometry is the problem there. Let's make our window a little bigger. Or perspective view. And yeah, it's got a little bit of a bubble to it, so let's go ahead and let's flatten that out, and we'll just select everything, unhide the glass cover, maybe move that back to where it's on there, select everything now, drag it back out until it's on this side of that dashboard. I wonder why that's so ugly like that. Maybe it's got the wrong one. No, that's right. Oh, I think I know what's happening. I think it's mapping. No, it's not. I wonder why that's so offset like that. Everything's set up in here. Oh well, we'll not mess with it. But anyways, like I said, you can see the transparency of the covers on the gauges just fine, but I would like the headlights to be a little bit more clouded over, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit the 7 there to create another one. We'll call this one headlights, and then make the transparency a little less. Let's make it 0.7. And then the same thing on this guy. Just go ahead and set the material to be headlights instead. So I'll go ahead and save this, look through our camera again, and we'll go ahead and hit F11 to bring up what we rendered before, and we can hit F12 and it'll render out again. One of these days. There we go. Okay, so the seats and the gas can are all textured up. So everything's textured. For some reason, it's still showing those headlights as very transparent. Huh. I wonder why I did that. Okay, in any case, the last thing I would like to do before we call this done, go ahead and save, as far as materials go, is I'd like to add some actual bumpiness to where the mud is at. So if we look at our render, you can see everything's smooth, so that's just a dusting of mud on there. I'd like to actually give it some texture, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go back to texture paint mode, and we're going to make use of our texture paint layers. If you've closed Blender and opened it back up, you probably are missing those, so just go to User Preferences, Add-ons, and just look for Texture Paint Layer Manager. Make sure that's turned on. You'll have your options over here. So now, I have two different textures applied to this. As you can see, they're loaded up here. So I want to go ahead and add a third one, add Bump. Okay, and it goes ahead and adds a plain bump there. So let's tab into Edit Mode, so we can select everything and create, looks like it went ahead and created that new bump map for us. So now, if we start painting onto our bump map, you can see, as long as we're in GLSL shaded mode right here, you can see the bumps in effect as you paint them. So that's pretty neat. So let's undo all that, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that texture mask like we were using earlier. There we go. And if I just paint in there like that, you can see we're actually adding some actual texture to it. Now that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to set the strength down really low, maybe about 0.2. And if I paint now, you can kind of see it looks a little bit better. Okay, so let's make the radius maybe a little bigger and maybe a little bit less strength, about 0.1. And we can just kind of paint in there real subtle like, and just get some actual texture there on that mud. And actually it looks like it's indenting in, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to come out. So let me undo all that I just did, if it'll let me. There we go. And let's change the color to black instead. And then when we paint, it'll actually add it on top to where it's coming out. So I think that's what it's doing. I can't tell with all those lights. It's hard to tell which direction it's coming from. So tell you what, let's go back to solid view or object mode, and let's get rid of some of these. Let's get rid of all but one. Delete. Okay, so now we can get a better idea of how that mud is behaving as we paint it. So let's go back to texture paint, and we'll just paint a little bit more on here. Does it come in the right direction? Looks good to me. So we'll just add a little bit of texture everywhere we have some of that mud. Lots inside there. Quite a bit in here. Now I have all of the project paint turned on, so I don't want to accidentally go through the model and put texture somewhere where I didn't intend to. So I'm just going to make sure I try to stay within my boundaries so I don't have the stencil effect when I accidentally pass over. Like if I went right here, we had to get a stencil effect right here where that corner doesn't meet. See, right there. So I'm going to undo that. So just make sure you try to stay within your open bounds. Stay within your visible bounds, I guess would be the better thing to say there. Now I can't see what's going on over here, so I'll just kind of guess. You can put another light if you like, and that can help out in the dark areas there. You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and set that back to object mode. Now we're painting that texture on, and since we're using the texture layer manager, it already added that bump map over here into our texture settings, and it set it up everything we needed to do, UV coordinates set as a normal map and everything. So it does all that work for you. So all you have to do is make sure, see all the bumps painted on in here and in here. Just make sure you save this image periodically. Actually, it doesn't. It's not saved yet, so you have to save as image. And we'll call this one Jeep Normals. Normals are normal map is the bump map. Okay, so got some on this side. So I was going to go ahead and create another light on the other side. Shift D, drag that over to this side. And then maybe for when we get to the front, let's go to our top view, we'll drag another one up here. Maybe make these a little bit dimmer, 0.7 maybe, just so we have a little bit of variation, 0.5 on that one. So everything's not lit up the exact same. Okay, so grab that. I'm going to finish painting that mud on there, texture paint. Let's just go ahead and paint some of that onto the bumper here. The grill. Oh, I didn't paint the radiator black. I need to go back and do that. Which we'll do that once we get all the mud set up here. Just painting. If you want it to be a little bit thicker, you just set the strength to be a little harder. Like so, there we go. Getting some of that stencil effect, like I was talking about earlier. But I'm kind of getting in a rush here. So you feel free to take your time. Take as long as you like. Get this all painted up the way you want to. Okay, so like I said, I want to go ahead and paint that radiator. And the way we can pop in to do that is on your texture paint layers, you just say, I want to paint back on the texture. So just, boom, you just check the little check mark, which is like a little paintbrush beside the Jeep texture. Now we'll tab into edit mode, and it'll reset the texture over here. And I can say radiator, which is probably this guy and this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that, turn off my brush there, set the strength way up, and I need to set this to be paint as well. We'll just paint black on there. And then come up here and paint black on this one. Okay, so now our radiator is black. So save that image. Now we'll come back to the bump and make sure we save, tab into edit mode so it resets over here. Save that image. Okay, so again, this one's going to be a little longer apparently. I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and call this one done, part 14 done. When we get into part 15, we're going to change some of the specular as well, add a specular level, because the dirt is dried mud. The olive drab is not really that shiny, but the dried mud is going to be even less shiny. So we'll come back in here and add a different specular for where the mud is. So go ahead and save part 14, and that's going to be it for that, and I'll see you in part 15.